So we kind of like touched on the paid media side. We kind of like talked about it in drips and drabs. So I think in terms of shifting the conversation to the actual advertising space where you actually have to spend money on the platform, let's talk a little bit about all the different types of objectives you have on LinkedIn and what you can actually do with all of them.
Yes, so that is a very interesting conversation. So basically, I mean, you've got a few criteria. So it's from your brand awareness, your engagement, website driver, video views, lead gen. They would really be the foundation of the campaign, as I say. And also what's important is once it's live, you cannot change that objective. You'd have to rebuild. So, often we A/B test with different objectives, and you have to look at those campaigns carefully because it can get quite technical at the bottom end of it. But looking at are you looking for an impression buy, and that bid rate is important, and that rate around that's important, or is it more the actual engagement rates and click-through rates are important? So I think it's absolutely critical that you have those clearly defined objectives up front, and also how you're going to measure it, because I think often there's a drop-off. Is that yes, these campaigns delivering and they're doing their thing, but where's it going to go once that data is in? Are you using that particularly on lead gen as well? Is what is the user's journey through each of these, from the ad basically through to the website to where your catchment area of the lead? What's the lead life cycle? Is that being measured? How are you kind of tracking all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And
what I wanted to say was like it almost sounds like a lot of people are reactive to the advertising, and I think we've seen this a lot with small to medium-sized businesses, is the fact that they start advertising on the platform without a real plan or without a real goal. So they'll go to brand awareness objective and be like, oh, I want to create some awareness for my business, thinking that's going to generate leads. And it's not necessarily what's going to happen, because you have an objective specifically for lead generation or for driving someone to your site. So someone would choose brand awareness, not knowing that that's actually not what they want to do. If you had to peel the layer of the onion, then you'll realize, oh, I actually need leads, or I actually want to drive people to my site. Or even though brand awareness is good thing to do, it also needs to be contextual to the budget that you have available. Considering that the platform is quite expensive. So someone would choose brand awareness, they would run the ad, so they would spend 5K, nothing's happened. They see all these metrics and they go, no, it hasn't worked for us because we hadn't had a single lead. And I think that's what's currently happening to a lot of people. They go to LinkedIn, experiment, because ideally you can do it yourself. You don't need an agency. Obviously, if you want to do it right, and if you want to ensure that you've got a strategic plan and a goal, whatever, you can get someone who's obviously an expert at it. But I think a lot of people go try it out themselves, spend $4 or $5 and don't see a result, and then say, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I think, like when you're planning your campaigns as well, is make sure all the techie stuff is set up. And why I say that is because ultimately, even if you're doing a brand awareness campaign, is if it's driving through to that website and your tags are running, you can actually get that catchment area building on LinkedIn, so that your next campaign is now massaging them down that sales funnel in a richer way that is more on point for what they're looking at. So say for instance you've got an IT system that you're selling, and you're looking for new prospects. So they might not be aware of your brand or the services, whatever it is. So yes, okay, I'm going to do a test of brand awareness and engagement, and I'm going to I cannot stress A/B testing is so critical on this platform because of exactly your conversation around, what are the metrics and why are people doing this, So if on both of them you have your insight tag set up on your website, means that person, fine, they might not be a lead today, but they click through and they were, their interest is piqued enough that they went through to the website. And either it lands on a particular page orientated around the product you are pushing, or it's a homepage, whatever your strategy is then you've got that person building on the back end. There's an audience building up. So say for instance you've got your homepage audience building up, so that the next campaign is that you can start then moving them closer to that lead. Because ultimately, a banting lead is, you're going to pay for that. obviously there's a more premium, and I mean, this is not only on LinkedIn, it's right across.
Do you call it a banting lead?
Yes, a banting lead.
Why?
So a banting lead is basically someone who's ready to buy.
Okay.
But obviously there's a long...
So like a hot lead,
yeah,
basically.
Yes, it's a long journey to get a person to be that banting lead. And, you know, it's just, you know, you might need 10 to 20 pieces of content and touch points to convert that person. So that's why I think lead gen is quite a complicated science in itself. You know, it's not instant. You know, you've got to catch that person at point of inspiration and that they need the product, you know, or want it or whatever. You know, if it's retail, it might be a bit different, but
no, 100%. And I think essentially also it depends on the ticket item that you're selling, because the higher the ticket item, the more work you have to do in convincing this prospect that this is for them. And I always say, the sale only happens when value exceeds price.
Yes,
Now, what can you do with your LinkedIn campaign that's going to help them understand the value?
Absolutely.
Because that's what it comes down to. And I think a lot of people don't get that. They're like, we have an IT solution. It's going to help you grow. Here's why you need to buy it. The business owner is never going to just invest 20 grand a month for that IT system or whatever it might cost if he just thinks it's going to help him grow his business, because his first question is to be like, how is it going to help me grow my business? Why is it going to help me grow my business? Do you even know what kind of business I'm in, and how sure are you it's going to help me grow my business or run my business more efficiently? And I think people don't necessarily really, again, I like referencing the layers of an onion, but people don't do that. They just kind of like say, this is going to help you grow, but there's all these layers that the decision maker has to go through and kind of like understand. And I think from what I'm hearing you say, like, it's really, really important to plan your campaign appropriately and accordingly, because you can't just go and start experimenting randomly unless you've got an endless budget to play around with. But you need a goal. You need a clear objective. And then it's about really getting to that point of, okay, cool, how am I going to articulate what I need to articulate to answer the potential questions this decision maker might have at the end of the day, in order to get them down this funnel.
Yeah, and I also actually want to add, there's some interesting units on LinkedIn as well, that if you have an active company page, so your organic presence is quite strong, there's already, you know, a fairly strong brand affinity on the platform in your segment. I mean, you might be quite niche, you know, is that you can also use things like a follower ad and a dynamic ad. So they will only appear on your desktop, but they almost look like a recommendation from LinkedIn. And that's really a nice way to leverage growing your organic base if you are obviously quite active on the platform, because that can also help lead gen campaigns further down the line, because you can actually target your followers of your company page. So, you know, you might even have a unique campaign just for those members, because you know they've bought into the brand, they're interested in the content that you're sharing, and now you would like to perhaps educate them on maybe a new introduction or a new technology that the business has, and you can take it from a far a far focused way in terms of your targeting. So there's a lot of room to play in terms of being a campaign manager on LinkedIn, but don't make it too complicated either. I mean, you don't want your head spinning, you know. Rather, like I say, once you've got your plan in place, and even if it's only up to 3 months, that's absolutely fine. And one tip I would like to share is, if you are going to do lead gen, do it for 3 months.
Okay. Rather,
you know, spread your budget differently, but do it for 3 months, because of, you know, the cadence and how that the tool works. I see better delivery rate and success. And also in your first month, you can basically say that's about testing. It's about eliminating your bad leads. It's, you know, refining that audience so that you actually have a better quality. Obviously, for engagement and brand awareness, you will have different metrics, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But keep changing, changing it up a little bit, tweaking it. Just those small nuances can mean the greatest success.
And I think when it comes to all the different objectives, what we can maybe do is have a look at some of the most common ones and maybe just explain when you would use them and how it kind of works.
Sure.
So maybe let's start with brand awareness, for example, because that's probably one of the most popular ones at first.
Yes.
Maybe give us an idea of when companies should be using this and what kind of metrics should they look out for when they do use this.
Yeah, so I think brand awareness is really about driving, it's probably simple messaging, using your website, because you want those metrics measured, and it's a simple measurement. You are not going to be looking at followers, any form of engagement statistics. So it's just the algorithm is purely designed to reach as many people with that ad. So we have a frequency of about, I think it's around 3 on the sponsored content per member every 24 hours. And yeah,
so someone can see your ad 3 times in 24 hours.
Yeah. So, and that's also quite nice, is if your budget allows and the strategy allows, is that you have 2 different forms of content. So say, for instance, a video and a static ad. And then you basically reaching that person, you kind of reinforcing the brand. So this is also another question I get asked, is about duplication. So duplication is not necessarily a negative at all on LinkedIn, because you're actually just reinforcing the brand, but in different ways.
Duplication in terms of what? Sorry.
So often, let's say they're running multiple line items, right? But there are different content pieces. And they, either it's going to be the same audience, and, clients get worried that they're just like inundating this poor person with.
You mean almost like the ads are competing against each other?
Yeah, there's that dynamic, yes. And then also, if it's different audiences, but there is a slight duplication.
Okay.
So in certain areas, remembering, and this is also quite important to take into consideration, is if you're looking at an enterprise business, a medium to enterprise business, as the bigger the business gets, the more decision makers tend to be involved. So that is where duplication can be a bonus.
Okay.
So if there's a duplication of the audience, so if you have some of the matches, it can work quite well. And also in terms of content as well, as long as the content is different. There's tweaks, or there's a video, or there's it's a variety in there.
And in terms of daily budgets around starting out, let's say SME had to start out, a minimum daily budget I think is like $80 today. Like, I don't think you can run an ad less than $80 a day. Correct?
This is also a question I get asked very often. So there is a minimum spend of $10 a day on LinkedIn. So that's your absolute bottom, minimum.
Yeah.
But really, because it's an auction-based system, is when that advertiser is actually paying for the audience that they are targeting.
Yes.
So yes, we have generic benchmarks that we can, guide us.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's why when you're on Campaign Manager, you'll see there is a forecast tool. And that forecast tool is literally working against the audience that you have chosen. So it's very formulated, and tries to match that data as best it can, and it's real time. So what you will get in the system is, say for instance, you're looking at IT managers. Geez, I'm stuck on IT today.
No, shame, man.
But,
that's perfect.
So or in the edu sector as well. So you have now got your target audience in place. Is when you go down to your bid section, there will be different strategies that you can look at. But if you do manual bid, you select manual bid, there's a little drop down menu that happens, and it will give you the medium recommended bid on that audience at that time.
Okay.
So as an example, it might be $23 as the low buy to win the bid, or $53 as the high end. Then what you can do is, it will have the medium in there. You can actually play around with that figure.
Yeah.
And the forecast tool will then change on the right-hand side to say,
I've seen that,
this is kind of the engagement or CTR, whatever your objective is, this is what you can expect. So as a campaign manager, that's quite important, because you'll see if your campaign is under-delivering.
Yes.
If you choose a low bid, you can always by all means test this, is that you might see the cadence and the delivery of the campaign very slow. So if the client has time and they don't mind that slow cadence, you can test that strategy. However, the medium is probably the best, kind of in terms of how everything works together. If you're seeing, the kind of 3 key areas that you look at when you see a campaign is not healthy, as we say, is you look at the bid rate. So if your bid is too low, that can have an impact on the campaign. So that's one of the easiest things to change. So you can either set it by a daily spend and a lifetime spend. Then you have your audience targeting, of course, so that you can change immediately while the campaign is live. You can just make those quick changes. And then, of course, it goes down to the creative. So there are tricks, there are best practice guides for creative, you
Yeah.
know, and listicles, thought leadership, women in business, all of those are do well, but it does come down to those criteria, but ultimately it all comes down to objectives.
Yeah.
So currently, we're seeing in South Africa, because different territory have different behavioral patterns, is engagement is working very well, and it's quite nice in the delivery of a campaign because you see the things of shares, which is nice, because obviously your reach goes out
Yeah,
more.
you're getting extra reach for free.
And that's also why employee advocacy is so important, because that also extends posts like that. Then you've got follows, social engagement, comments, and remember those all go into feeds which are transparent and their networks are seeing. So that's how it kind of grows your reach. And LinkedIn are introducing reach reports within your campaigns, which is quite nice.
Reach reports would be what? Oh, it actually shows you who you reached. I saw that.
Correct,
So we were
yes.
experimenting with that because now you can actually exactly see what kind of job titles you reached, what type of companies you've reached,
Yes.
how they've engaged. So we look at the CTRs, the click-through rates, which means that the percentage out of 100, basically, how many people have engaged with this post out of 100,
Yeah.
and you get a percentage. And if we can see that, this post resonated really well with people, and I'm going to use your example in the IT space, or this post worked really well for people in the mining industry.
Yes. And those are your low-hanging fruit in terms of
100%.
lead gen, or perhaps just really building up those relationships and brand. If it's brand awareness, then you would be focusing on educating and that awareness factor in essence.
No, exactly. And I want to explain maybe to those listening is that you've mentioned the word auction, because that's technically what it is. It's a real live auction happening, and you've mentioned that you can manually change the bid or what you're willing to spend to reach someone's feed. And I think I've explained it like this, and this is the best way to kind of like articulate it, is that it's actually, for those of listening, like, have you ever been to an auction? It's like literally where they say, I've got 100 rand over here, I've got 100, I've got 150, do I have 200? I've got 200. Do I have 300? I've got 300, 350, and that's 1,000 rand to the guy in the back. And that's essentially technically what an auction is. And that's what's happening in real time based on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all kinds of algorithms. Brands technically competing against each other for that feed, right?
Yes, well, similar advertisers in terms of their target audience, but I must also emphasize is that the second bid wins the auction, because otherwise people are going to say, well, geez, it's going to skyrocket, I'm paying like it's just...
so the second bid wins also.
It's actually the second second bid wins the auction. So it actually is more fair to the advertiser as well.
Okay.
It's
well, you as an advertiser don't have any control over this, obviously, because that's the algorithm. All you can technically do is just set your bid and hope for the best, and then look at the report and see how many people you've reached.
Or what you do is like you can do an auto bid, so that also works for massive campaigns. It's actually better to set an auto bid. I think that if you there are quite a few tricks if you're working on a smaller budget. Is CPC buys tend to be more expensive, but then obviously you literally, if that is the criteria and the click is of high value to you, I totally get that strategy. But it really is about, like I say, A/B testing. So maybe a first-time advertiser could do the same piece of content, the same audiencing, and different bid strategies. Or they could do the same content, different audiencing, which would mean different bid strategies by nature, because the cost of the audience will be different. They might be quite similar, but there'll be differences. So also it depends on the activity on the platform. So they're very popular audiences. So for instance, anything with mass affluent, C-suite and above, graduates, students actually is very popular. Because of the edgy guys use LinkedIn very successfully.
We've got an education client.
Yes, So they really are growing more and more on the platform. So quite interesting. We work with the sales teams and the marketing teams in terms of this in the edgy space. And it's fascinating because Facebook can give the volume at a very low rate, but not necessarily the quality, whereas LinkedIn's kind of the opposite, where it's maybe less leads but higher quality and better conversion. So some of our clients, we're kind of training them to now start measuring the lead cycles. Someone might show interest in, say, an MBA this year but can't afford it, or they are other issues in play, but it doesn't mean that that's a cold lead. Maybe for now, yes, but to keep the conversation and contact going is very imperative to successful future campaigns, and that person eventually does come back at a better time. So we're trying to kind of have all those measurements in place with a business. But yeah, I mean, just coming back to that first time advertiser, it is about experimentation. And like I say, rather do it like a 3-month cycle is the winner. I just personally see campaigns really coming into their own, the bid drops rates. So consistency is key to,
Correct.
I think, better bid rates, better, audience targeting, because you've got demographic click reports, you've got a whole bunch of, background information that you maybe sourced from the website, and that helps you improve those campaigns month on month.
And in terms of the post-engagement objective at the end of the day, or the engagement objective, how would that be different to awareness? And again, what do people need to be cognizant of when they're going to run those type of campaigns?
Yeah, I think, it's very important that, like say for instance, engagement. So when you go into Campaign Manager, there's a little question mark button that you can select, and it will go into an explanation of what that algorithm does. And if it's an engagement campaign, it will give you that it does, it will measure all the follows, that everything that happens, it clicks everything on that unit. Whereas on a website driver, as an example, it will only catch that click that goes to the website. That's it. That is it. There will be nothing else.
Well, in terms of reporting, right?
Yeah. So it can be a bit daunting, because you think, geez, this campaign doesn't look like it's performed, but it on that objective, it actually has. So you might see on a click-through, it's a lower CTR rate, but a higher impression rate. Whereas on an engagement, it's the other way around.
Okay.
But like I say, I'm talking very generally. I mean,
No,
this
for
is
sure.
very, very general.
Thank you.
Because there's just such a variety of criteria that can impact this. But I cannot stress enough is really think about the objective as your first building block. So, like I say, do a brand awareness with an engagement line item and see what you get from that. And that will give you good guidance into terms of future campaigns for that business.
Okay.
So
again, when it comes to the engagement, that is obviously different to brand awareness. And this is the algorithm, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be showing that ad to people who are actually more prone to engage, because the algorithm can pick up whether, because you get a lot of people who are very, I look at my wife and she's the classic kind of like just in the back looking at what's happening. She doesn't really comment, share and like and engage with posts. She just scrolls. So you get people who just scroll and consume, and then you get people who actually interact and are social. And the algorithm obviously can pick that up. Therefore, correct me if I'm wrong, the brand awareness ads will be shown to people who are not necessarily going to engage, because they're more of the consumer type of person, versus the engagement ad who's actually going to be shown to people who are more prone to take action when it comes to seeing the post.
So it really is, you'll see it gives you quite clear definitions of to serve to as many people, you have that interest based down. So yeah, I mean, it's it definitely is something to be experimented with. And I mean, like video views, it's also quite interesting is if you have a video run as engagement versus video views, once again, the algorithm will work specifically to focus on that the video gets viewed, in that line item.
So people are going to click like, comment and share on that video ad, which is you've used. And just to break down how the campaigns are structured, you've got campaign level, ad set level, and ad level. Campaign level is what you want to do. Ad set level is kind of like who you want to target and your budget kind of vibe. And the ad level is what are you going to show, what are you going to say, type of content. And if you consider the fact that on the engagement side, you can run a video. However, it's an engagement
Different
objective.
metric,
So people are going to see the video, but they're going to click like and comment and share. But if you choose a video objective campaign, you're going to get more views.
Correct,
Technically, right?
Because it's designed specifically for that, But I mean, you will still get the metrics. Actually, I'm glad we're speaking about video as well, because video, so how you post a video organically on your company page is not necessarily the same specs as when you post a paid campaign.
Really?
Yes, and it's actually something to be aware of. I mean, obviously, all the specs are on the back end. You can
Yes.
go into the help repository of LinkedIn and get that. But it saves a lot of time and frustration as to why your video is sitting in review when you basically boosted from the page. It's because that actually the organic posting is not within the paid media specs. So as a tip, go and find the paid media specs of a video and build your organic postings like that. Videos will perform better. It's just best practice, but best practice to post the video natively. Obviously, you can still have it linked to YouTube and that, but you'll get better analytics and better performance if it's done natively. I think probably all social media platforms are designed that way, that their native stuff would perform better, but I still see people doing that. And obviously, something that we actually haven't spoken about today is LinkedIn Live and the events tool as well. That's all new. So
is Live available to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Because in the beginning of the year, or like a couple of months ago, it wasn't.
No, it's just the ramp up, I think.
Okay.
Obviously, the capacity of that ramp up. And events is also available to business pages. It's organically. We can't boost it yet, but I think that's on the product map. So I'm getting very good feedback from businesses that are using it. So it's quite nice. You don't necessarily have to have a LinkedIn Live application if it hasn't gone through yet or you haven't done it. You can actually still link it in terms of your invite. So if the webinar or whatever's happening, you can still use your third-party invite link in there.
Okay.
So there is a lot of flexibility. Also for small and medium guys, is that you can now connect from the company. You can connect from the company page. You can invite people. So basically, it's the admin's first-degree connections.
You can invite them to find.
Yes, up to 1,000 people.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then once you've hit that, then no more.
Yes,
You'll have to figure out other ways. But it's just a nice value add, I think, particularly for new guys coming onto the platform.
For sure.
So that's a bit of time, and also I think that's quite strategic. You're going to have to strategically think about that, and it just shows the importance of having a good, healthy network from a personal capacity. So it's worth taking the time to, as you say, what you did with your marketing managers. It's worth the time long term.
I want to talk about the last three ones, which is traffic, which we've touched on, lead generation, and in messages or messages, basically. So when it comes to traffic, before running a traffic ad, is obviously very, very important to understand that there's a tracking pixel, a code, piece of code that you have to put on your site, so that the site can talk to LinkedIn, and so that LinkedIn can talk to the site.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't do that. So when you are running website traffic ads, essentially you're missing out on a lot of additional insights, which could help you improve the campaign and even your business, essentially, purely because you forgot or you didn't know that there's a tag to install. So maybe tell us a little bit about the tag, what you can do with it, and all that kind of stuff.
My favorite subject at the moment. Cool. I'm doing a lot of this digital hygiene to help clients. So very, very important is that firstly, the webmaster must take that pixel. It's a bit of JavaScript. It's quite nice because it's just one pixel that does so many things. It needs to be implemented on the global footer or header. And this is actually quite important because it's something I've recently picked up, is that if it isn't done on the footer or header,
of the global site, obviously,
the global footer or header on the website, is that what happens when you introduce new landing pages into a campaign is they do not get tracked.
Okay.
So it's one of those nuances that is so easy to overlook. So just ensure with the webmaster that it is on the global footer or header.
Yeah.
Often it just gets put on the home page, and then what you will see on the back end is you'll see that page is firing, and then the others aren't, and then you don't understand why that's happening. So it's just because the inside tag is not implemented correctly. So that's the first step. Secondly is that with that, once it fires, you see it pretty quickly. You'll definitely see it within 24 hours in terms of the back end that it's communicating on your campaign.
And it's a little green little light that you get.
1 minute ago, active, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. you then go to where it's called website audiencing in the tool. You then have to build your website audiencing. So it doesn't happen automatically that, yay, the tag is firing and all this information is going to come through. No, there is another layer. You have to basically tell the system what it's tracking, and then you need a naming convention. So as an example, you would say, a home page, contact page, ERP systems, or maybe it's a particular course like MBA courses, so that you know that when someone clicks on that particular button, that's then they're interested in that particular program or product, and it's got the correct naming convention, so that when you're in Campaign Manager and you select matched audiences, you can then talk to those members with that campaign.
Okay.
So it's an additional added layer onto any existing campaign that you've got. Very, very powerful over time.
Yeah, I think that's one of LinkedIn's most powerful features, similar with Facebook, is that you can then essentially retarget everybody who has been to the specific page.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people would look at it and go, oh, that's cool. They don't understand the power of remarketing, because essentially if you've set up your conversion tracking correctly, like you've just explained, and you've named your pages and you're building audiences around the people who visited your homepage, contact page, pricing page, it's very powerful, because now you can retarget people who visited your pricing page but did not convert into a lead. Now, as a marketer, you can ask yourself, what are the main reasons why people might be objecting against my price? Is it too expensive? Am I not articulating the value of my product well enough? Because if value exceeds price, a sale is going to happen, essentially. So maybe I'm not articulating the value. Maybe people think that I'm expensive when I'm truly not, because they don't understand the norm, the industry benchmarks in terms of pricing, or what my competitors are charging. So when you plan a remarketing campaign, it becomes extremely powerful, because now you can explain your pricing better in the remarketing ad, knowing that this person has visited your pricing page. So you can say, think that we are too expensive. Here's why we're actually, the most affordable in the country. Or, are you unsure of whether we're a fit for your type of business? Here's why. Essentially, we've helped companies just like yours. Whatever. We've seen it. I know you wanted to say something there, but we've seen that testimonial ads work extremely well, where people just need a bit of extra confidence, knowing that your company is essentially the right fit for them. And that's where we would bring in a testimonial ad, retarget them, and saying, this lady we've helped this lady or company grow her business or their business by X in so many months, and this is kind of like what we did, and that kind of like gives them that extra confidence to actually inquire. And you wouldn't have been able to do any of that. You wouldn't have been able to laser target that exact person with that message if you didn't have this pixel installed.
Yeah, and it saves you a lot of money long term as well. So ultimately, over time, it becomes more and more critical to your strategies. So definitely such a valuable tool, and it's already there to use, for clients. Another nice thing about it as well is that on any of your campaigns, you do need a firing insight tag to measure conversions on your campaigns.
Okay.
So there are quite a few fields that you can choose from. So it's key page views, leads, whatever your submit button, whatever the criteria is. There are also additional layers in there that you can choose as well. So you can get that information as well as your website audience is building. So it's got real value to that little piece of JavaScript.
No, it's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the last two, which is lead generation and messages. So starting with lead generation, I don't think a lot of people would, it means that we want to generate leads, but the nice thing about this is that it actually instantly opens up a form and kind of like almost pre-populates the data that LinkedIn has got of that individual.
Yes.
And then they can submit that form, and you can be not notified, depending if you've got external tools set up that will help you notify that there's been a lead. Yeah. And you can then download those leads right in the back of Ads Manager, correct?
Correct, yes. So there's a couple of things around lead gen. Firstly is that I'm going to mention that A/B testing. You see what I mean? It's like it just always comes out of my mouth.
No,
but
cool.
The A/B testing is that you can A/B test the LinkedIn tool. So that would obviously use the fields that are populated within a person's profile. So when you fill out, when you're building the unit, is you will have different fields. We just see kind of the sweet spot in about maybe 4 fields asked. So it's your name, surname, email address, perhaps a cell phone number. And you can have a customized question, because people do not like filling in millions of things, especially as a first contact. Ultimately, you want to have them come into your funnel, and then perhaps you have a workflow set up on a CRM system if you have that in play. Otherwise, it might go to manually go through to a team
member or whatever,
a sales team member, and they will do a cold call or an email straight away, and you really have a very short window. So having a automated workflow is crucial. It's best practice, but ultimately, I think a key win is to get that person on the phone, but you only have about maybe 24 to 48 hour window, and that lead goes cold. You're looking at the big insurance guys when they do their tests. They do have buildings full of people and amazing call centers, and they will follow up with that lead within 3 minutes, if that long. So it just goes to show some of those best practice around lead. Another thing is, when you are A/B testing, you can use the LinkedIn tool, which I've just explained now, and you can always do a driver to the website where there is a form. Now, one thing I am noticing is that clients are not doing that lead form above the fold. Whatever you do, do not make someone scroll to fill in a form below the fold. You will lose them. You will just lose them. Often they don't see it. They don't know what's going on. It's just like, it's cumbersome. It must literally be the first thing that they see when they click through. There are autofill capabilities from LinkedIn onto that form, but then obviously you're quite limited in the fields or the questions you can ask.
Yeah.
So the technology is there to do that, because think about, LinkedIn is mobile centric. And we all know, fabulous smartphones, is that you do a lot of this, reading through your various social media platforms on your cell. And to fill in a form manually is very, very cumbersome.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you want to negate that process. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And also, I think we have a double click gate. So you can't pocket dial, you can't, accidentally submit the lead form. It really has to be a conscious choice, because it opens up and it tells you what the offer is.
Yes.
And obviously you would read what the fields are. They would be auto-populated, but there might be one or two that isn't, or like a customized question, which would just be yes or no. So it's quite easy. And then you'd have to submit. So it's a protection to the client. Privacy policies are needed because of the GDPR compliance.
Correct.
Another thing is that when you build leads, is that if you're running a campaign and it's on a sponsored content ad, and you send out a whole bunch go out, and then you realize, oh dear, we need to make an edit because there was a spelling mistake or the office changed or whatever it is you will have to rebuild that entire unit, and that is because of GDPR compliancy. Because once a person is served your form, they have agreed to the terms and conditions of that active form at that time.
Yes.
So that is why, I often hear, campaign managers moaning that they have to rebuild these things. That is why. So it can be a little bit more.
That actually makes sense, because GDPR is exactly that.
Correct.
Like, what exactly did you sign up for?
Yeah, and all your terms and conditions are there in the privacy
Correct.
policy, which normally lives on the website. So often I see people who are new to lead gen in the digital sphere haven't done the private policy, but you can find that anywhere on the web in terms of what you need to put in there. It's quite easy. But that is a criteria. It's not even worth starting the build on a lead gen if you don't have that link. So just another tip in terms of size.
Have a privacy policy page, or
Correct.
some page on the site where you are explaining exactly what's going to happen with their data.
Yes.
The nice thing about lead forms is that you don't need a site technically that's super user friendly, or has got, if you're in the process of building a site and you want to start running campaigns, the minimum requirement would be just to have a privacy policy page, at least. Because the LinkedIn lead-in form technically acts as a quick landing page where
Correct.
you can get a little bit of an idea of what the offer is, and then you can leave your details.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, also it's very important to understand where that data goes. So the data is encrypted, and it will stay in the back end for 90 days. If you do not use that data, it will automatically be deleted.
Okay.
So this is also quite important, especially for enterprise guys, or maybe the bigger, larger, like medium-sized companies, is that if it plugs into our CRM, it's delivered real time. So all leads are sent to someone real time. So whether that's through an automated CRM system that plugs in, and I mean, LinkedIn has APIs for almost everything. I mean, they're pretty jacked up in terms of that. Or you could just have something like a API to build a bridge to send to a team leader email. But ultimately, you know, you can, as a campaign manager or admin on that campaign, you could download those leads and then off you go, you know. But in terms of the LinkedIn space, it's highly protected. It is never on-sold. You cannot use them anywhere else. It's pretty much the same as your ingestions as well. It's you know, if you're not actively using them or refining them within 90 days, they'll get deleted.
The lead form is pretty powerful, and I think you've mentioned something which is very, very true, is that the more questions you ask, the less people are going to complete the form, because you're creating friction. People don't like friction. The nice thing is, the more questions you ask, the people who do complete the form are going to be higher quality. So it's about finding that balance at the end of the day, and testing out what works best. And you also mentioned custom questions, which is really important, because the point of the lead form is to qualify your prospect, so that your sales team doesn't sit and speak to someone who's not qualified to buy your product or service. And I see this all the time. People think that they are going to convince someone to give them their money, as opposed to spending your time and energy on people who are already interested in giving you their money. That's essentially how it's going to make your business more efficient. It's about having your sales team or yourself reaching out to somebody who is more qualified and someone who is essentially ready to take the next step. And that's what the custom questions will allow you to do. But again, you need to be cognizant of the fact that the more questions you ask, the higher the drop-off will be.
I also think it's like it can be industry dependent as well. So engineering, mining, you could maybe have a more formulated, longer lead form. You know, there are sectors that are quite niche where people are open to, you know, sending more information through because of what it is. So I actually have quite a unique client where they are in sort of the mining engineering sectors up Africa, and they need surveys done, but it's very obviously it's a very particular skill set and very stringent criteria. And you know, they need these people kind of to fill up these 10-minute surveys. So it's not exactly a short, quick exercise. And they use you know, various metrics on LinkedIn to do that. Okay. So it really is about the audience. Obviously, if it's kind of, you know, automotive, edu, IT, it tends to be the shorter. Banking, I mean, financial is huge on us. And I think also people are very cognizant of fraud today. Correct. So they are very careful about what details they are just sending through a digital system, because of, you know, we've heard of all these data leaks and things like that. So it's completely understandable. So kind of think about actually how the back end of that lead is going to happen is sometimes more important than the lead form.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know? And then lastly, before we round up, in terms of the messages objective, maybe we can quickly touch on that, exactly how it works, and maybe some best practices.
So this is the InMail and the conversation ad. So these ads work very differently to your sponsored content. They are available across all screens, so you're not limited there, and they can be overlaid with lead gen. So in essence, the InMail and conversation ad is a one-on-one engagement. So you will have a smaller target audience. It's also costed on cost per send. And as I say, you can only be served one every 30 days, and no other advertiser can then contact you. It can actually be sent from the brand or a thought leader within the business, or from a profile, or obviously someone with that designated suitable, relevant person. So often I've seen CEOs have sometimes done it, and then you know, we do groom them that they, you know, must be open to be contacted, because often the person will then connect with them, or there might be a more generic conversation that might happen from that. So because it's a person, it's a member, they will go and see that that person is real or whatever, you know. So that must just be obviously taken into account, but they work very successfully if it's from a thought leader or someone well known in the business, for that matter. but they contain more information, so they are copy rich. On the conversation ad, you can have multiple links, which is really nice in terms of the website driver. You can have downloads in there, so that's nice for case studies or white papers. And then you can have the lead gen as well. So very nice unit. We're seeing some good return in terms of that new launch. It's a property that you own, so you'll send a little kind of customized square ad with that image. And then when the person opens it up in their inbox, you basically own that space as the brand, or as the brand, even with a thought leadership member pulling through. But it's a very nice tool to use in the lower part of the funnel. And once you've had some nice data come through, or perhaps you've got an audience where you've done an audience ingestion, and you can then target with so much more information to that person who you already know is bought into the brand or has interacted in some way.
100%. I think one thing to be cognizant of is that you obviously can straight out try and pitch someone an offer and say, hey, here's a deal for your business. But the problem is that people are very hesitant to really engage with those kind of messages, because it kind of like feels like a cold call. And again, I think if I can add my experience here, is that what's worked for version 8 when I ran LinkedIn in messages or InMails, which is now messages basically, I suppose, I provided value. So I asked myself, what do I want to see? The last thing I want to see is that because it says sponsored message, right? Like ideally what happens is that people are aware that this is an ad. So you can't personalize it in a way saying, hi, I think this is for you, because people would know it's in a sponsored ad, so they know that you didn't take the time to craft a unique offer for their business because it's an ad. So this is where psychology comes in. And I think what I kind of like did was, I thought to myself, okay, I can't do that. Well, I mean, I've tried all of these things and it didn't work, and that's why I went back to the drawing board. Like, some of them work, obviously, depending on the offer, but most of them didn't work for us. So I went back to the drawing board and I said, cool, what can I do that's going to be different, that's actually going to get people to open the message and get people to actually interact? Because a lot of people were opening, but they didn't interact. So I realized that the subject line, because you get a little bit of a subject line there that you can obviously add, which is quite powerful. So I know that that's the first barrier to getting someone interested. So I said there, free book that's just newly been published. And we've published our own book, which I didn't bring to give you today, but I'll make sure that you get one. But we published our own book, and I had the e-version available. So I said, free book that is just hot off the press. And basically, they would open it, and then I would just articulate that I want to give them the free version, and just for some feedback. They're obviously a marketing manager, so this is going to benefit them. And we had massive engagement on that, which was really, really powerful. And we collected a lot of people's contextual email addresses, right? Purely because of the fact that they wanted that ebook, which was a published book. So they're getting a 250 Rand book for free in exchange for maybe just giving me some constructive feedback, or maybe just telling me what they thought. And now I'm connecting with my ideal prospects, which was very cool. I'm gaining their emails and that kind of information. And now you can further the conversation depending on where you want to take this. But that's one thing we did. And I think just be cognizant of, I think a lot of people are going to just start saying, buy this at this price, at this discount, and they're going to be very sad when they don't convert those prospects into sales. And I think, look, it doesn't necessarily work like that. You need to be a bit more cognizant of the person doesn't know who you are from where you are, so you have to build up a bit of a relationship with them first.
Absolutely. I'll give you a nice example that we did. There was a travel partner, and they had partnerships with various financial institutions. And what they did is they siloed those each institution, and they made like a special offer for the employees of that financial business. And the InMail was then sent and saying, basically this is for the employees of da-da-da-da, and this is the package and that. And they did it to all the big five. Excellent campaign. They had such good uptake because it was personalized, it was relevant, They knew who they were talking to, and obviously around the brand messaging as well, that association, there was already in a relationship. So it was a much easier, conversation with that individual. And I think that the perception was there was a lot of value.
Yeah.
And it really had good legs for them.
No, awesome, man. And that's pretty powerful. Thanks for sharing that. From my side, thank you so much for coming through. We're going to have to round it off here, being cognizant of time. And I think, look, it was such a pleasure having you in the studio. And I think those listening and watching definitely had a bit of an eye-opener when it comes to LinkedIn. It's been an underrated platform, still an underrated platform. I think people are not aware of its fully the full capabilities of this platform. That's for sure. The power of LinkedIn is amazing. So I hope those watching, listening learned something. I'm sure you did. Thanks for coming through and adding value. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, or maybe to Turn Left Media, essentially, where can they get hold of you guys?
Well, they can definitely reach out to me on my profile. They can send me a message just so that I have an understanding of, where they're from. And
your profile is Anthea. Maybe just spell your surname.
my surname is Chittenden. So it's a Chittenden. And I mean, you can of course reach out to any of us at the team on Turn Left. I mean, we are nationally based, and we have people in key areas of Africa. So Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana. I think we've just extended into there. John Bowles and Marius Rief are the directors. So John is based in Cape Town, and Marius is up here in Pretoria.
Nice.
So yes, I mean, we are always open for conversations. We do offer training as well.
Tell me in the website address, turnleftmedia.co.za. Awesome.
Yes.
You guys can go check it out if you want to learn a little bit more. Thanks again for coming through. All the best. You guys have a great week. And Anthea, thank you.
Thank you.